What is up, guys? How you living? So let's go trudging onward through my metal CD collection. We just broke through into the E's in my last video, so we are trudging along about halfway through the E's this time. I always had this theory that most good metal bands started with the letter A, B, C, D, or E. So your collection would be like 1/3 those letters, and the other 2/3 would be everything else. So we're going to be listening to Nargara with Geliebte der Regens. Pronouncing that perfectly, I assure you. This is his like slow album. I don't really listen to a lot of Nargarath or really much Nargarath, but this is a slow. This is almost like his Abyssic Hate album, his Suicidal Emotions album. I really like it. It's been a long time. I've been kind of meaning to put it on, and it's good. I hope you like. So we're taking a look at some E's. I love this album. Electric Wizard's Dope Throne. I will never forget the time my friend Ron called me up and said, "Hey, there's this band. They're playing in town tonight. They're called Electric Wizard. You want to go see them?" And I was like, "I never heard of that shit. I'm not going." And it was on the tour for this album, and they played in front of like 10 people. I so wish I could have seen it. But so I think a couple of my friends did go. I think maybe he even went. But people would rave about this album, and I picked it up, and I loved it from day one. I never liked Sleep. I never liked The Obsessed or like any of that shit. Pentagram, none of that stoner stuff has ever resonated with me. I think it's dumb. But this record is just a fucking colossal monolith of amazing guitar tone. It just fucking punches so hard. I love it. It's a perfect album, but everything else they ever did wasn't even close to as good as this album. And every band within this genre, I feel like it's like the At the Gate Slaughter of the Soul, and then there was just like a genre underneath it, and that genre never fucking even touched being as amazing as Slaughter of the Soul. This is the case for Dope Throne, but luckily that Slaughter of the Soul shit went away, but this persists, and it's fucking nauseating. I'm tired of it. So I'm a grump today, aren't I? And if you don't know, I changed my shirt from my last video to make it look like I didn't shoot 2 videos in the same night. We've got Electrocution with Inside the Unreal. Yet another Crypt Dark Descent reissue. This time it's a 2 CD. And this time it's a band that I don't think anyone had ever heard of until they reissued this. But this is some great shit. It's like technical Italian stuff. I shouldn't fucking do that because it falls down on me. Yeah, super technical kind of stuff. I just got this 3 or 4 months ago, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I've spun it a couple times and it's fucking great. It's got the Inside the Unreal album, and then it has some demos, 90, 91, 92, and those weren't quite as good as the album. You really just need the album, but I always really appreciate that when you buy most releases from the Crypt, you're getting everything. You just know that band, done. I paid for it. I've got all of it. I'm done. I love that about that kind of thing. So next we've got something completely different. And I talked about this album, Elend, Weeping Nights. I talked about this album last winter. I'm really looking forward to winter, by the way. And I did a video that I don't think any of you liked other than Marvel. Marvel, you're my dude. Where I talked about like kind of pastoral winter sort of albums, where it's just like the dead of winter, all is silent, and It just kind of seems like louder music. Would kind of shake your bones a little bit too much. And I chose this album, and I love this fucking album for that video. Anyway, so if you want a little bit more of an elaborate explanation, go check that out. I'll put a link down below. It's a great video. I shot some like winter footage out in the woods, and I kind of did some experimenting kind of stuff. Anyways, Ellen's Weeping Nights. I don't really know anything else like this to compare it to. It is not metal whatsoever. They did kind of start out as a metal band, but quickly, over the course of 3 albums, I think, stepped more into the classical realm, the more operatic realm. And that brings us to the vocalist on this, a French woman with long hair. She sings, I don't know, she's got an amazing, beautiful voice. And usually when I hear any opera singing, I'm just immediately turned off. Just shut it off. Don't want it. But this is really great. It's not traditional opera vocals. I think traditional opera is more wordy, and they're playing out some part in a play, where this is just operatic for the sake of the song, and it's really mournful and pastoral sounding. It's just absolutely gorgeous music. I bought this from Red Stream Records from Pat's house in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, the summer after I graduated high school. And my mom and I drove all the way up there just for a visit, and so I put on this album, and we were driving on Interstate 80 traffic late at night. My mom was asleep and in the passenger seat, and there was just a torrential thunderstorm, and I was driving down the interstate, weaving between semis back and forth, trying to make as much progress while my mom was asleep because I was so tired of fucking being on the road. So I'm going like 90 miles an hour. I'm a stupid 18-year-old kid, but I just had this experience that I'll never forget, of this beautiful classical music. Just it calmed me down to such a point where I was driving so recklessly in traffic. But it was just kind of a beautiful moment, and I love those instances in your life where you have an experience matched with an album, and those two just kind of bond in your head, and you just kind of never forget about that moment and that album. So next I've got Elysian Blaze. I'm trying to get better at like not shooting the reflection straight at you, with Cold Walls and Apparitions. This was put out by Northern Silence. I'm gonna shoot from the hip and guess 03, 04 maybe. And this is really great, but the band only got better and better. This is just super bleak and just mysterious sounding. This is an Australian project. I think it's a 2-man group. You could kind of maybe say that this has some trappings of depressive, suicidal kind of stuff, but this really predates that. But it is so distant and bleak and just grim as all fucking hell. I really love Cold Walls and Apparitions, and this one, the second, I think that's the debut, and I think this is the second one, but I might be off by one. You'll correct me in the comments. Levitating the Carnal is this one, and this was put out by Asphyxiate Recordings out of Australia. I believe after this album, which is fantastic, the song Macabre Be Thy Blood, man, it's just so nasty and just inhuman. It sounds like these fucking grim ghosts in the corner of a abandoned meat locker just singing songs. I believe they got signed to Osmos. They did a 3-way split after this with somebody else, but I don't have that. I need to get it. And then they did maybe 1 or 2 full lengths for Osmos, and I need to get those too. But I've always just really reached for this Levitating the Carnal. It's super good. So next we've got Elysian Fields with Adelaine. I picked this up just kind of on a whim a couple of months ago in Chicago. Nuclear War Now reissued this. It was released originally in '96. And I don't really know anything about this band, but I mean, how could I not? Cover like that, Nuclear War Now reissuing it. But it's actually kind of not as good as I expected it to be. It's pretty good, but the thing that drives me nuts about it is the snare on the drum machine that they use. Really, really, really distracting and kind of off-putting. So when you're dealing with music that's kind of got like a more gentle or delicate kind of atmosphere, but you've got this fucking pummeling snare beating away at the side of your head, it's kind of hard to get in the mood for that kind of thing. Wow, so next, who remembers, raise your hand, who remembers the band Ember from Chicago? This is a CD called Concession, and this is a compilation of 3 demos. I don't know, some stuff. I've got one of their demos, hold on. By the way, in my last video I talked about Despair. Here's a different version of that Meet Death at Full Throttle demo. Here's a Ember demo. I'm sure a lot of you like old school US black metal guys either have this or remember this band. Is this the band where I think Abbas? Yeah, Abbas Jafari was in this band, and that dude was hilarious. I want to say he used to post on some AOL like metal message boards or something like that. These guys were really good. I've never really heard anything quite like them. I'm saying Chicago, but this P.O. box is from Darien, Illinois. I've never heard of that. I'm kind of surprised, but I kind of think they were just Chicago. But hard to say what they were like, man. Kind of Norwegian sounding. They were definitely listening to that kind of stuff back in the day, but they really took their own kind of take on it. They really kind of had their own, maybe kind of punk influenced sort of vibe to it. They cover a song by Naked Raygun as well as the Misfits on here, and I haven't played this in probably 15 years or so, but I'm glad I got a copy of it. I think it was self-released. Shadow Play Records. Yeah, it says Chicago. So they were only around for about 4 years. I remember seeing somebody at Milwaukee Metal Fest, maybe 2001 or so, wearing a shirt that was all pink. And at Milwaukee Metal Fest, if you're wearing an all pink shirt, you're standing out like a sore fucking thumb. And on the back of it, and the back was the first side that I saw, it said, "At least I'm not a Christian." And I thought that was fucking hilarious. And then I wound up seeing the front of it, and it had the Ember logo on it. So I knew that that was Abbas making a really hilarious shirt. That dude was so funny. I bought a Swordmaster shirt off of Abbas Jafari, and it didn't fit, but it's not his fault. So next we've got, it's my fault. My fucking fault. The Embraced with In My Dreams, I Am Armageddon. This is a melodic Norwegian death metal band. You don't hear about that very often. And this is pretty sloppy. It's a debut. Oh, look at this disc art. This is just awful. But this is pretty forgettable, pretty average. It's just a debut on Aftermath Music. But they did a second album. That was 98. This is 2001. They did a second album called The Birth. And this is pretty fucking good. So when I say melodic death metal, I think a lot of people kind of go, but there was a great period of time for that music before it got ruined by hardcore kids. And this is a really fine example, and I would say that this is Norway's answer to a Canorous Quintet. Now, if you know a Canorous Quintet, you are probably perked up and wanting to hear this then. The Canorous Quintet fucking slayed. They were just an amazing Swedish blackened death metal band that quit just at the perfect time. And then I think 2 guys went on to do Amon Amarth. They also did another band, King of Asgard, which is kind of good. It's alright, but whenever I hear King of Asgard, I just wish I was listening to a Canarus quintet. Anyways, that's not about this at all. This is really good. I'm not very familiar with it. I've just kind of sat in my collection for years and years, and I need to throw this on again. Well, pardon. Now, a lot of friends of mine, these last two are fucking gems. I'm stoked that we're on these. This band is called Emeth, E-M-E-T-H, with the album Aether. I think this might have popped up on like a YouTube recommendation or something at some point many years ago. But that was another album. I wound up keeping up with this band, and this is, I think, their most recent release, 2014. Extreme Music put this out. This is fucking violent, vicious, pummeling death metal, but it's so hyper speed and so fast that you would almost call it grindcore. It sounds quite a bit like a grindcore band at face value. It also kind of sounds quite a bit like a lot of those super technical kind of like necrophagist kind of bands almost, but I don't think they can really be pigeonholed in either genre. They kind of like stand right at that fork in the road between death metal, grindcore, and that super technical kind of brutal death metal kind of shit. It is fucking brutal, don't get me wrong, but this stuff is just fucking some of the most unrelenting shit I've ever heard. I don't know much about this band. I want to say maybe they're from France. Isn't it funny how much we depend on saying where a band is from to say what they sound like, when it shouldn't fucking matter, you know? It's kind of surprising how much, as metalheads, we think that a band's origin has a lot to do with the way they sound. They're from Belgium, that's right. They're Belgian. I want to say maybe, so I don't listen to like The Aborted or like Lang Che or anything like that, but they might kind of sound a little bit like The Aborted or Lang Che, and I want to say The Aborted is from Belgium also. There might be some kind of similarities there. I'm probably way wrong, but anyways, Trez, if you're watching this, check this out. I think I've recommended this to you before. I recommend this to all you guys, but especially Trez. Now it's getting fucking serious with Polygon, Black Dominated Annihilation. This album is so fucking grim and nasty. The band is from Germany. This album was their only album. They did a little demo tape. This came out in... God, isn't it fucking hilarious how often I don't fucking know this fucking answer? And I guess. I'm gonna guess 99, maybe 2000. Anyway, it's really good. That's the most important thing. So I think most people will just hear this and at first glance hear that it sounds like a drum machine was sped up a lot. And it's probably the case. I don't really know what is going on here, but it is hyper fucking speed. Absolutely inhuman fucking hyper speed, but not so much that it isn't enjoyable. Not so much that you feel like, fuck this. The riffs keep up with it. The riffs are just fucking simplistic and grim as all hell. You know, it takes that kind of template of like Dark Funeral or Cythereal or stuff like that, and just does it fucking right. I want to say they even kind of step down a little bit musically. These riffs are super simplistic, and they just kind of have those harmonizing guitars that are just like one step up from the riff, and it just makes it so fucking goddamn grim and nasty. But this album, man, fucking awesome. You know, this is kind of one of the things that I reach to when someone needs a recommendation. If someone wants violent, fucking nasty, grim, but fast black metal, this is what I recommend them. This shit is so good. Black Dominated Annihilation, Autopsy Stench. I'm sure you can get a copy of this on CD for $10 or so. LP version is on my wish list, and I see it go for maybe 15 to 20 euro every once in a while. So it's worth grabbing. It's a super amazing album. I wish they would have done more. But yeah, this is just such an awesome timepiece for that time period. So good. Anyways, I'm out. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. And if the elections aren't over with, again, vote, motherfucker.